I'm being a little bit of a bad friend here by asking you to do this pod right now. The Lions keep on having injuries announced. It feels like I'm going to have to keep on refreshing Twitter to see who else is going to miss the rest of the season. You look a little bit uncomfortable. Are you feeling okay right now?
I do feel a little bit better now that we're at least talking here. But yeah, today has been rough to keep going on Twitter, keep seeing the injuries. It's like that scene in The Incredibles when Mr. Incredible is sitting at the computer and he's like looking at all the past superheroes and it just keeps saying like terminated, terminated.
Oh
Like
man.
that's what the Lions roster is looking like right now, where they're just losing like half the players on the team.
Unbelievably sad, Tish. Unbelievably sad reference there. All of your movie references, I feel like over the year and the movies you want to watch, they always fascinate me. You know, the Campbell quote from last year, and I mean, I think we talk about this a lot, where when you have your shot, like you just never know when it's going to happen again. And like we see the 49ers kind of falling off. And now look, I will say the Lions kind of had the inside track to be the number one seed. They still have an incredible offense. Their special teams is really strong. You can get some variance on the defensive end. It's not like their season is over, but it just looks so different just in such a snap. But Tej, so we can start talking about that Bills Lions game. I do want to take it from the Bills perspective where I'm looking at the offense overall. It is becoming, you see a bunch of nice designs from Joe Brady. You see Josh Allen obviously doing just a ton, and separating those things at times is kind of tough. I do think that when we talked about this game just in preview, we see, what do the Bills have as an answer for man coverage? How are you able to create yards after the catch? I like the way that Brady was using, Ty Johnson on that wheel to Allen's right side as a man coverage sort of beater. You get that running back kind of going through the line, out of the backfield, up the sideline, off of spinner action. So you have just a creative scheme with the players coming together. And then, I mean, the Josh Allen play extensions are, they're getting out of hand. Well, like we got to do something to stop it. Like it's so crazy just because you can play man coverage, you can play zone coverage, you can play whatever you want. It's too hard to track your player just for that long. And I mean, it's got to be kind of fun as a Bills receiver, even when Johnson's doing out of the backfield, like to extend the play and just know no matter what happens, there is a chance that the ball is going to be thrown to you. Like you see some guys on film where it's like, hey, there's like no shot the ball's coming here. There's just no way that this quarterback's going to extend the play and get back to me. But for a Bills receiver, like you're just live all the time, and seeing Allen doing it really consistently is it's kind of magic.
That is a really good point because the main difference between Josh Allen and a lot of other quarterbacks in the league is like what he can do when he's scrambling or getting outside the pocket, but not scrambling. Where there's situations when he's like running towards the sideline, there's still a defender chasing after him or a defender that has the angle on him. But for him, the difference between like what he can do and what a lot of other quarterbacks can do in the league is a lot of other quarterbacks throw it away in that situation or they just run out of bounds for like a 1 yard loss. Like he is still looking down the field trying to find his different pass catchers, and all the pass catchers seem to understand that, which is so impressive. As like an entire unit for the Bills offense, and so like I think that's been really key for this offense to be productive is they can just get so many pass catchers involved in so many different situations where 9 different pass catchers got a target yesterday from Allen. And then you really saw the running backs be used a lot in the pass game where he had 26 total EPA on the day, and 16 of those were off of targets to running back. So you had the Ty Johnson plays, Ray Davis had some catches, James Cook had some catches, like just getting all the pieces involved in the offense, especially when getting outside the pocket and looking downfield to find those guys was like really impressive from Josh Allen in this game.
Yeah, Allen's so impressive. Like the highlights of him just like a few footsteps away from the sideline is a reel in and of itself. It does feel like the overall structure for the offense. Brady. Not that it's making like things easier for Allen, because I think Allen can really do anything, but you just get a few more examples where it's like, hey, things are clear. Like you don't have to be holding the ball and extending because like to rely on superhero quarterback play is really tough. Now it's great that you can just break the glass in case of emergency. You can use Allen in the red zone really whenever you want. I really, really like seeing that over this week, last few weeks, because that is something that just solves so many teams' problems. Or if you were able to have a quarterback that can get involved in that red zone area where, I mean, that's the money area. Like even this game where it comes down to a tight score, even though, I mean, the Bills there was multiple times throughout this game, they were up above 90% win probability. The Lions were still able to make it close, but doing that is so helpful. I don't know if you had any numbers here just on maybe how things have looked a little bit different for the Bills offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think like there definitely is some credit for Joe Brady and how he's kind of evolved Josh Allen's game a little bit. Where last year Allen led the league in total EPA. He was a great quarterback. Had some minor things he could clean up in his game. And I think we've seen a lot of that this season, where he's changed what he's doing in terms of aggressiveness, going from the third highest average up the target in the league last season to the 13th highest this season. So working the intermediate area of the field a lot, which is really good for someone of his arm talent to be able to make a lot of those middle of the field or outside the number throws in the 5 to 15 air yard range. Like he can definitely handle that. And he's also decreased his time to throw a little bit too, just like operating a little bit more in structure in the offense, finding Khalil Shakir off his first read or Dalton Kincaid off his first read. And I think that's just helping him, where the hero plays are really nice and usually good for the Bills offense, but just having some of those in structure plays are also helpful as well. And like this has led to him having just like no weakness. Like there's no way to stop the Bills offense right now in terms of when they're dropping back, because Allen is top five versus man coverage, top five versus zone coverage, top five when blitz and not when blitzed. He's really good in likely pass situations when the defense can send some of their more exotic blitzes. Like he's just really good against like every single type of split that you have out there.
Allen, he's just like hitting the right part of the dial where it's some like wackiness and Allen playmaking, but also, yeah, as you said, he can absolutely play in structure. And Tate, I feel like the whole entire year is sort of radicalizing me a little bit, not just Allen, but other quarterbacks as well. Like, I love play extending quarterbacks. Like, can you magically create a conversion on third down? I feel like that's something that I'm always talking about. But like, I love players that can just be a first read thrower, be a second read thrower, get your time to throw down. I do think that staying in that sort of rhythm is really really effective, particularly when you have an offense that is able to have guys that can get them on the move. You're creating yards after the catch, so that is a fun one. Talking more about the Bills here, because for me, it feels like I keep saying, at times I feel like they're the best team in the league. How do we reconcile that week 4 loss against the Ravens? Like it was a it was a rough loss. It was certainly before trades, before some injuries, before just things on both teams I think move in different directions. Like Allen played really poorly in that game. Obviously, that's like your one poor mark on an entire season. And I guess I'm just not sure, because I keep thinking, all right, well, the Ravens or the Bills. Obviously, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Like I still put them up top, regardless of what happens. Oh, actually, not regardless, but you have to see what happens with the Mahomes ankle injury. But I just like keep rocking this back and forth in my head between the Ravens, between the Bills. Like, do I have to make a choice, Tage? No, I obviously don't have to make a choice between them. But I just keep thinking, aside from the MVP race, just when I look at those two teams, I feel like you've mentioned this a few times where I still kind of feel like the Bills are just like match up a little bit poorly with the Ravens because of their defensive style, because of when a team wants to get heavy on you. Now, of course, the Lions are a team that wants to get heavy on you too, but the Bills were able to, you get that early pressure against a condensed set. You go up 14-0. The Lions end up only having like 13 rushes. So I don't know, Jay. I don't even know what I'm saying. I just keep thinking back to that game, and I'm like trying to have like logical coherence here between I think the Bills are really good. Also, the Ravens like wiped this team out. Now, it was a long time ago. Tage, talk some sense into me here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you with like just the matchup. Like the Ravens, because of how good their run game is, and just like the different body types that they have in the run game, where Lamar can beat you or stretch you horizontally, with some of his speed and elusiveness. Henry can really just kind of run over you, because he has the physicality of it. And so it's like when the Bills come out, where they're putting as many defensive backs on the field as they are, and how they usually have one more out there than the typical NFL defense. Like that's just not going to let you defend the run as well as other teams are able to against the Ravens. So like when that matchup happens again, like that's definitely something to keep in mind. From that specific sense, but like just as a whole, like the Bills to me are just such a good team on offense because of a lot of what we just talked about. Like Allen is playing really well. They have so many different weapons that can beat you. The run game is able to be efficient. Because of the scheme and what the offensive line is offering there, and then the defense has been like torched a little bit these past couple weeks on pass defense, but like it's been like a weird game state for them to have so many dropbacks against them, and they did such a good job shutting down the run yesterday from the Lions perspective. So like as a whole, like Bills are still probably the best team in the league just because of both sides of the ball and what they're getting from those positions. But yeah, like if they were to play the Ravens again in the playoffs, like the matchup thing would definitely have to be something that you consider. Just because of the two different styles that the Ravens offense has and the Bills defense has.
I think it's just going to make for such a fun playoffs because if I say, oh, well, the Bills kind of on average would probably be the better team, but then I think, hey, I maybe think the Ravens can beat the Bills. Isn't that the definition of like a team being better than the other one? Because Lamar is playing so well, like absolute insanity. Now, of course, his 5 touchdown game is against the Giants. I always love when you have these just hilarious stats where it's like, oh, more touchdowns thrown than incompletions, which Lamar had in week 15. So that was really cool. I do want to ask just real quick. So, what about if it comes down to an MVP tiebreaker? Do you give like some sort of head to head bump to Lamar? Obviously, like they're not playing offense and defense against each other. It feels like Allen is kind of the runaway MVP at this point. But I think Lamar has a really, really strong case. I don't know if you think that you get that head to head game, you give it to the guy who won.
I mean, I could see how you could do that. I wouldn't do that personally because I don't like reducing, something like that to that small of a sample size where it's like one specific game. But like obviously, like last year, Lamar shut down Purdy's MVP campaign by beating him head to head in that game. But that the Bills Ravens game was like so far ago or so long ago that even though Allen will probably end up leading the league in total EPA by the end of the year, which should get him the MVP. If him and Lamar ended up being tied, I think voters just wouldn't have as much recency bias about that game since it was so early in the season.
Yeah, and of course we understand, right? You're quarterback versus quarterback. You're not playing against each other in
Yeah.
the way that it's not like basketball one on one or something like that. It is kind of rough, like when the narrative happens, like that is so important. As you mentioned, like that game was so long ago. I'm interested to just kind of see how everything plays out there. Now, Tej, we do have to, of course, get to the other side of that Bills Lions matchup with the Detroit Lions. And look, Lions went down early. Thought Jared Goff played a pretty good game. Like he was able to create a bunch of explosive plays. I do think part of that sign, is kind of encouraging for that team overall. Again, the Bills were like they were really, really in the driver's seat, but still to be able to continue to create explosive plays on a Bills defense that is struggling, even though, I thought Ed Oliver did a good job creating some pressure in this game. But the takeaway has to be just all of the injuries. You're losing Lee McNeil, you lose a cornerback. Now David Montgomery is going to be out. It feels like those things are piling up really, really fast. It has been piling up through this entire season. Tage, you can look at the Lions kind of heading into the season depth chart on defense, and it's just like out, 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 IR, out for the rest of the season. It's really a bummer. At the same time, this team is still has like they control their own destiny for the 1 seed. They win out if the Vikings win out. Just got to beat the Vikings at that end of season game. Of course, you can also end up, in like playing on wild card weekend, losing the division just if things kind of fall a different way. I don't know, Tej. I feel like I'm going to defer to you here. Just where's your head at overall for the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Lions, and like the injuries that came out of that game, like the loss itself didn't bother me that much. Like when you have a defense that's missing 4 of its top 5 linebackers, you're going up against the best offense in the league. Like those types of games happen where you let up 45 points or 48 points, like the Lions defense did. They have ranked 25th in EPA per play since week 11 after ranking second in EPA per play allowed weeks one through 10. So that's a little bit worrisome, but like you can chalk up a lot of that to injuries right now. But like the problem is it's not getting any better, right? Like you lose Aleem McNeil for the season with a torn ACL where you're already missing a lot of your defensive line. He's really good against both the run and the pass. And so that's very worrisome because when he went out against the Packers, you saw Josh Jacobs start to be able to run a little bit more efficiently. Last week against the Bills, like when he went out again, like the run game was able to pick up even more for them. You have the James Cook touchdown and the different explosive runs that the Bills were able to have. So there is definitely a drop off from not having McNeil on the defensive line, and then Carlton Davis as well as a corner. Like there's a big drop off from him to the Lions' backup corners, like especially Kendall Vildor, where now you're not even going from like the typical first to second string. Like Vildor is someone that you're very worried about sending out there, and so just like the delta between those starters and their backups is going to make it tough for the Lions defense to perform down the stretch. So like when you look at that, like they've definitely been downgraded in terms of like where they rank among the league's defenses. Like it'd be tough for them to piece together a top 10 defense the rest of the way. But so you just kind of have to hope for the offense to stay really efficient like it is right now. You have to have third down variants or kind of blitz variants go your way in some of these bigger games, like when you get into the playoffs where Glenn can just send a lot of blitzes and hope he gets home. And if you let up an explosive touchdown off of it, like you probably were going to let up one anyways on just a longer drive. So you just kind of have to hope for that.
Tej, you pulled a little Waken tweet today. I think it was 9 o'clock. Where your tweet, and I will read it here word for word. Some general Lions thoughts. The first thing is not bothered with the loss versus the Bills. Usually when people start that off with a tweet, they're usually bothered by the loss versus the Bills. I do think you make a lot of good points there. I feel like you have to still be able to keep up with this offense, which is not easy. Like the Bills were able to do it because Josh Allen is an absolute menace on the entire league. So I still feel really, really strongly about this offense. I think that's going to lead the way. And we've talked about this a few times where Aaron Glenn at this point, their defense, it's going to be leaning to variance. You can hit the positive
Yeah.
side of variance where you're able to create some of those early third downs, like against the Packers. Now, obviously, the
Hmm.
Packers were able to create just so much offense later in that game. But when you're a team that just keeps on scoring, it's really, really hard to match that. I do think so much, unfortunately, is going to come down to who's playing home. Like, are you able to just sneak a bye and not have to play one extra game the way that everyone else is going to? I like think about the NFC playoffs. It is going to be a mess. Like there are so many good teams in the NFC
Yeah.
that I really feel like when you look at the AFC, like this team, maybe they're just like happy being there. In the NFC, like we'll talk about even the Bucks later, like a team that they should win the division, but like a lot of teams up and down that playoffs that I think is really, really hard, just going to be hard out. So overall, I feel like the Lions, like so rough on all of those injuries. The offense is still really, really good. They can still like hit the right side of that defensive variance. You can continue to make plays on the out. Like how many explosive plays this offense can create. It just like I'm happy. I feel like the narrative isn't like, oh, the Lions have all these injuries, like we're just gonna quit them, because like we don't have to quit the Lions. We don't. And like Dan Campbell is not gonna quit the Lions. He's gonna continue to be super aggressive. We of course have the situation where they kick the onside kick early on. I think a lot of people like turn to criticize that. Like for me, I guess you live by the aggression, you die by the aggression. At the same time, we talked about this last year when the Cardinals kicked an early surprise onside against the Eagles, and so there is a little bit of positive. Obviously, like, the onside kick is a very rare proposition. You can't surprise them anymore. It's like a very low conversion percentage. Your win percentage at that time is really low. So I always think we should be academically honest if we're talking like about the probabilities overall. Like you could luck out and you have them have a short field in terms of one, you're not expecting that big return. Certainly that happened there. If they have a short field,
Yeah.
they kick a field goal, like you're burning less time. I mean, like you think of it, we'll talk about the Eagles Steelers game next, but you go on a 21 play, 10-minute drive and just salt away the entire game. I guess like would I have done it? Maybe not, but I feel like in isolation, like I can rationalize. Even though Campbell's like, yeah, like I probably shouldn't have done that. I would take it back. I still feel like you can look at that and think, hey, at least the coach is trying something in a game where their defense really didn't have anything to throw at Allen.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said there. Like, probably wouldn't have been something I would do. But I can like definitely see why he kicked the onside kick there, where the Bills started off the game going on their opening drives, going touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Very easy missed field goal in which they had driven the entire length of the field again. Touchdown, then a punt, and then touchdown field goal right before the onside kick. And so I'm sure Campbell was just not confident in the Lions defense stopping Josh Allen and the Bills offense. So I think he was hoping for, the Bills to recover that around the plus 40, plus 35, the Lions to hold them for a field goal and then go down and score a touchdown. And that would be the way that they're making up points, because the Lions were fighting against not only being down, but also like the time remaining in the game where they couldn't afford to have another Bills 6-minute drive where they take a lot of time off the clock. They get the ball back with just a couple minutes to go, and they're down, by at least 10 points after that. And so, like, I get why the Lions did it in that regard. If you're going to commit to the bit, though, you should just do it all the time. Like, they should just kicked another onside, after their touchdown with 3:49 to go.
Commit to the bit. I love that. And look, when you're that aggressive, like you do get, I think, the benefit of the doubt at times, just because like that's I think the way that people would like you to move. And I'm fine with a coach saying, look, our defense doesn't have it this game. I think that coaches often will hold on to that a little bit too long, and it easily could have happened in the other direction and been a positive situation. But I don't know, Tej. I'm just happy to give Dan Campbell some credit